Okay, we're back and we're looking at John the Baptist, the voice in the desert crying out. Herod, after he had murdered the Baptist, hearing of our divine Lord sometime later, thought that he was John the Baptist come back to life. Herod did not believe in a future life. No sensual man does. Belief in immortality dies easily in those who live in such a way that they cannot face the prospect of a judgment. That's why you hear people say, oh, there's no heaven, no hell, I'm going straight to heaven. They're like Herod. They don't have any belief in a judgment or in the Messiah. A future life is denied not so much by the way of one thinks as by the way one lives. So imagine today the lifestyle of people on Judgment Day. And once again, to quote Bishop Sheen, he said, the road to hell has become an expressway of 6 lanes.
No.
All going in and no coming out. And that's true. It's true. Herod had convinced himself that the door was closed at death. There was nothing after death. But now, once he heard our Lord was preaching, he began to think that John had risen from the dead. Skepticism is never certain. Is never certain. So he became a skeptic in all of this. Being less a firm intellectual position than a pose of justifying bad behavior as a Sadducee, Herod rejected the next life, but feared his conscience after all. And hearing of the wonders and the miracles of the Lord, he sought to see him. And he did see him less than 2 years later, when Pilate would send our Lord to him. Now you remember how Herod treated Jesus. We see this in Luke chapter 23, verse 8. To have sight of him because he had heard so much of him, and now he hoped to witness some miracle of his. He wanted Jesus to perform miracles for him. Jesus opened not his mouth. Herod took a clay vase, broke it, and said, certainly you could put this back together. Or maybe it's too difficult. Maybe you need something more simpler. Jesus said nothing. Herod looked at the Christ. He had never seen the face of Jesus until the last hour. He never before had heard his voice. And when the moment came, our Lord refused to speak to him. After the transfiguration, the apostles who had seen Moses and Elijah speaking with our Lord began asking questions about Elijah. Our Lord told them that Elijah had already been among them in spirit. They had seen him in the dweller of a lonely place, the man clothed in camel's hair, who lived midst of fair. Then he dragged the cross before their eyes again. He showed them that the death of John the Baptist was a prefigurement of his own death, as the people who had seen John believed him not, so neither would they believe our Lord. So this is what today's world is doing. Then we ask ourselves the question, has Elijah come back? Or are we to wait for another? Many people believe that. Jesus said, you have seen Elijah in spirit, John the Baptist. Then the cross was dragged before their eyes. This was Christ. They misused him at their pleasure, just as the Son of Man is to suffer at their hands. Through his commitment of the Baptist faith, Jesus foretold his own suffering and death. He was endeavoring to make apostles familiar with the idea of dying as well as conquering Messiah. We have not come yet to know Messiah. Some people have, in places where the church is flourishing, such as Puerto Rico, the Philippines, Africa. Africa is the first largest country in the Catholic Church with the most Catholic population. Second is the Philippines. And the majority of vocations are coming from those areas, because they understand Messiah. They appreciate Messiah from what they were taught by missionaries, what they learned about the faith, how to develop faith in their lives. That's the key, development of faith in their lives. You don't hear about churches closing there. You hear about mega churches where people will walk miles to go to Mass and spend the day with Jesus. In the Philippines, they have a president who is not Catholic. But every day at 3 o'clock on the national radio, and he did not stop it, no matter what channel you turn on your radio dial or television, 3 o'clock, everything else stops. And they pray the Chaplet of Divine Mercy. Stores close. Until the Chaplet of Mercy is completed. We had a parishioner that goes there. There's a family there. And she'd come back and would tell us. Cora. 3 o'clock, everything stopped. Because they know Jesus. That's faith. Here, everything goes around the clock. And police have to pick up drunken husbands and take them home. Or the wife has to go down and bail them out the next day. Or kids wandering the streets. Because there's nobody at home for them to go to. That's the American way. The American way is we don't go to church. So let's put the padlocks on them. The American way is people will complain, moan and groan, because the bishop has to take action to close a church. The same with Protestant ministers and rabbis. They get the brunt of it because they have to close a synagogue or churches. And they tell them there's no people. So we go to where the people are. So that's the American way, which is the wrong way of faith. The right way of faith is to bring the message of the voice of the Baptist back into the home, into schools, into churches. That parents take control once again and build family life. As people blundered in blindness by failing to welcome the Baptist when he came in the spirit of the penitential Elijah, so they would miss the Messiah when he came among them as one bearing their guilt to ransom it on the tree of the cross. The apostles were told that such a destiny was foretold of the Son of Man in Mark chapter 9, verse 11. That he must be much ill-used and despised. The Psalms and the prophets had alluded to suffering of the Son of Man. Just as our Lord did not save John the Baptist from the cruelty of Herod, neither would he save himself from the same Herod. Even within our church, we see people acting like Herod. Liturgical interventions on their own. Thank God liturgical dancing has stopped. It was a mockery. What was the purpose of it? Because it looked nice. And our kids had something to do. That's fine. Put your kids at the foot of the cross and dance in front of Jesus. But when it comes time for the sacrifice of the Mass, they don't know a thing about it. That's why young people don't go to church. They want to be entertained. There was no entertainment at the Last Supper or Calvary. The only entertainment they got there was the voice of people crying out, "If you are the Christ, come down off the cross. Save yourself and us." But the herald had suffered the lot of one whom he heralded. The messenger received violence because he had announced the message. And once again, the Mount of Calvary looked down, this time across the valley to the foot of the Mount of the Transfiguration. Everything in his life told of his cross, including the violent death of John the Baptist. Thus, now we prepare for chapter 14, which will begin next time. The bread of life. So if you have your text and you want to begin reading page 175 through 184, please do so. Bye for now, and God bless you.